Thank you, everybody. I think I've been to the conference 3 or 4 years now, and every time it's fantastic. The committee does do an excellent job at organizing it, so thank you, and I do feel honored being here today to present on behalf of FPInnovations. So I'm going to talk about innovation and safety for the next 20 minutes or so. I'm going to give you a bit of a highlight or overview on FPInnovations, provide you with some specific information on our Faller Cam project, and also share a little bit on a few of our safety initiatives. So FPInnovations, we're the largest not-for-profit forest research company in the world. We have offices and labs in Vancouver and Quebec, and we focus on innovative scientific solutions for our members and strategic partners to promote global competitiveness. So that's a pretty big mouthful. Just as an example, the center photo on the right is a project we're doing right now with Timber West, Island Timberlands, and Interfor, inventing a new kind of boomstick. So this photo is from Timber West's dryland Sorda Shoal. These are innovative boomsticks. They're treated. The yellow is poly coating on the ends, so great visibility, durability. They have metal sleeves in the holes. They also have, several of them have synthetic boom chains, which I know the boom crew has commented that they're much lighter and easier to work with. And it's also our first attempt at RFID tracking. So these sticks do have RFID tags on them. So just an example of innovative scientific solutions for our members and government and strategic partners. With each of our projects, we focus on return on investment, and when I say that, I mean financial benefits. Second piece is around environmental performance, and third is around health and safety. So as an example of that, the photo you see on the right is the Hawkeye grapple carriage. This is operating on Interfor's tenure in southern BC. Just in terms of safety benefits, it does have LED lights for low light conditions built right into it, along with an infrared camera that the operator can pan when they're yarding. So pretty cool advancements and things that we consider with each project. So the Faller Cam, this has been a really interesting, exciting project from the start. Last year during a meeting that I was in with Interfor asked us, can FPInnovations look at cameras and using cameras and technology to improve the safety performance around hand falling? So pretty interesting question. The second piece with that is, are observations from off-site possible? So as the faller's at the stem or at the stump falling that tree, is it possible for someone, let's say from roadside, to observe what that faller's doing? Let's say even from another block, from camp, or even from the closest community. So pretty big ask, if you will, exciting challenge, and that's where it really started. At that time, FPInnovations and a company called IotaTel, which is based in Victoria, started to work together under what we call a strategic research alliance. So IotaTel does have considerable expertise with technology, and this relationship really fit with improving the rate of proof of concept to more rapid commercialization of products for our members. So this one was, working with IotaTel on this was a really good fit at the time. So as we started working together as a team, one of the first questions we asked ourselves is, how do we feel about camera surveillance while being at work? So if we were working in a dangerous occupation and our bosses came to us on Monday morning and said, you guys work in a dangerous industry, we want to put cameras on you in the morning, and at the end of the day, you're welcome to take them off. How would we feel about that? And the key word being surveillance. So I had talked to a lot of different falling contractors and logging contractors, and maybe not surprisingly, when I phoned them and left messages, they didn't get back to me very quickly. So after a few weeks, we were really lucky to go out on site, northern Vancouver Island with Lemaire Lake Logging. The photo on the right is our first day observing a faller falling an old-growth Douglas fir. And from that initial day, there are a lot of key observations that we started to run with, if you will. So just to run through a few of them. Fallers are more likely to be involved with video if they have some control over the footage. So this is pretty apparent if you go to YouTube. You can see a lot of videos that fallers have taken of themselves. Second piece is WorkSafe BC regulations. Today, 2 people max are allowed at the stump or the stem when it's being felled. So if you have a third person that wants to observe falling, its regulations doesn't allow it. So this was definitely a big consideration. From 4 in the morning till about 3:30 in the afternoon, it was pretty exciting to spend time with a bullbucker and 3 or 4 fallers and talk about switchback safety training, front brain thinking, fight or flight responses, working alone, qualified assistance, the culture around the falling community, all those human pieces to the falling phase or manual tree falling phase. So working with Lemaire on that first day and having all those conversations was super useful just for the context in the application. Last thing I wanted to mention here is that technology must not create upset conditions. So with this project, and in the photo here, this faller's really focused on falling that wood in a good place where it's not going to break apart, but also doing it safely and being focused on safety and staying alive. So with this project, we didn't want to create upset conditions with technology or cameras. So the key from that point has really been focusing on everybody's needs. So we heard from a lot of falling contractors in the falling community, information around falling audits. So they're expensive to do, they have to be done monthly. The quality, a lot of the contractors said, can be questionable. If you're filling out a paper document, filling out check boxes, putting it in a box, and they end up in the corner of your office for the rest of their life, how valuable is that? The other piece around the faller audits was around how could we capture the supervisor faller conversations through the day in the audit process. So how could documentation be improved? Second piece is around training, and every time I think of this, I'm always kind of shocked. The average age of a faller in BC is 58, so pretty incredible. A lot of people retiring, of course, and fallers are very expensive to train. So how can technology and cameras reduce the cost and improve that piece? Third thing is safety and just general uptake by technology and how technology and cameras could provide ability to demonstrate and share good practices. So really complementary kind of approach to the things that everybody's doing well and how everybody can learn from that and benefit from it. Excuse me. So I know a lot of people in the room are familiar with safety stats around manual tree falling, but just wanted to highlight within BC there are 2,500 certified fallers with the BC Forest Safety Council, so a pretty huge number. When we first started this, the stats we had were from 2015. So in 2015, safety-related claims to manual tree falling and bucking exceeded $11 million. So a massive amount of money in 2015 alone, and the team looked at this as, what if we could reduce that $11 million by 10%? That's $1 million per year financial benefit. So talking about return on investment for each of our projects, that was a real key driver, if you will. In terms of the falling audits and reducing the cost of the audits, obviously a huge benefit for the falling community, falling contractors. You know, improving the quality, improving the training piece, reducing the costs, all pretty exciting upside, if you will, with the project. So we got pretty excited about the opportunities with this. So as it turned out, we ended up having Blue Thunder Contracting as a collaborator to work with. I know a lot of people here know Steve Venus, world-class third-generation faller, and a fantastic collaborator for us and for this project. So the initial trials, we started with the D6 camera, which IotaTel is the North American distributor of that camera now. And we also tried iPads with wide-angle lenses. And by the second or third day, it was really interesting. I think we left the shop at 4:30 in the morning, and by 10 o'clock, we were sort of scratching our heads saying, wow, we've already made this much progress with this gear, and there's so many possibilities. So we decided to set up a field demo on the Sitka Main. I invited WorkSafe BC, BC Forest Safety Council, Interfor, Island Timberlands, Timber West, and the BC Wildfire Service. Given that all those organizations have different interests and different context and application, if you will. So it was really interesting to see, have the demo and be part of the different discussions and conversations around the application, improving safety, and reducing costs. And I just wanted to highlight here the photo on the far right, the far left is Steve Venus. That's the camera mounted on his chest, him acting as an auditor of an intermediate faller, if you will, or a newer faller. The photo on the right is actually the site that we set up at roadside. If you look really closely in the photo, you can see a mini Wi-Fi tower in the right of that photo. On the laptop, you can see Steve's faller bucking. So from 2.5 tree lengths away, Nick Birch from Iodatel and myself at roadside watched live Steve's guy falling and bucking. The laptop's recording that footage. The camera on Steve's chest is recording that footage. So pretty cool application on the Sitka Main. So I just wanted to share 2 short videos with you. One, the camera being mounted on the chest as an auditor, auditing a faller, and the second video is of the camera mounted on the hard hat. If you could play the video. Maybe I have to ask Terry, but after watching this every time, I almost smell wood chips and saw oil. It's just a great example of the gear and how it works. One of the things that was interesting when we first started doing the trials, Steve's newer faller came on the scene, and you could see by his body language he was kind of uncomfortable and didn't really feel like he was happy about being picked to go through the trial and the demo. And after a few trials, it was really cool to see him almost rush back to the laptop and see the things that he was doing well and the things that he could be improving on. So really cool to go through that transition. So what's next with the FallerCam project? We're continuing implementation with Blue Thunder Contracting over the next few months. Several months ago, we met with WorkSafe BC and did a presentation at their office in Richmond. I think about 25 or 30 people were at that meeting, and there was a lot of discussion around checklists, videos, and photos, and combining that as a due diligence tool and an auditing documentation piece. So there was a lot of discussion around legal context also, and a few people asked me questions about that during the break. I know WorkSafe BC did provide some information to the BC Forest Safety Council CHAG group. I think there'll be more discussion on that to come. We are doing a pilot with the BC Forest Safety Council with Scotty Rushton. I'm not sure if he's here today. And that's with the faller safety advisors, supervisors, and the faller training. We're going to be in Holberg next week with West Coast Falling and BC Forest Safety Council, so we're looking forward to introducing them to the gear. So just switching gears a little bit, I wanted to talk about log truck rollovers. Several months ago, Timber West came to FPInnovations and asked if we could look at reducing the number of log truck rollovers that occur on Vancouver Island with their contractors and also, of course, in BC. So I always find it interesting when we start jumping into projects and looking at stats. So in 2016-17, and Rob Moonen touched on this a little bit with his intro, there were over 100 log truck rollovers in the province. So when we started getting into this project, that number seemed pretty huge to us. Again, a fantastic opportunity to improve safety around log hauling. From the data that we had that we got from BC Forest Safety Council, that was from industry, it indicated the most common root cause was speed. And the whole team talked about it and talked about it with Timber West, and it's interesting when you say the root cause is speed, but how about all the factors or the other variables that come into play with that word speed? So what was the weather like? What type of truck configurations were involved? What did the loads look like? What was the maintenance of the roads? What did the road layout and design look like before that road was built? All these different factors and pieces that come into play. One of the things through the conversation that came out through the process was, what if those 100 drivers or those rollovers that occurred, what if those drivers could have told you about their close calls? What if they had a device that would provide them with feedback when they were close to tipping over? So we currently have a project right now with Klaus Basalt Logging out of Campbell River. They've been fantastic to work with. And we've installed a rollover warning system gear on 2 of their trucks and 2 of their trailers. The real goal of the gear is to provide the drivers with feedbacks when they're getting to certain thresholds around rollovers. So that's one piece of it, basically giving them close calls. And that could be dependent on a number of different things. But the second piece around that is, where are those close calls happening? So from the stump or the block to the beach, where are those close calls or those scenarios happening? And does it have to do with road maintenance, road design, load type, you name it? So we've just started that trial and we're looking forward to installing more gear on different trucks. On a related note, we completed an assessment or a project around electronic stability control of a few trucks operating in southern BC. I know that a few of the contractors working for Timber West have ESC on some of their trucks, but this relates to rollovers, and if you're interested, we can provide that information to you. I wanted to just briefly talk about our Steep Slopes initiative. Several months ago, several of our members came to us and outlined that haulback blocks there are issues and, incidents and accidents related to haulback blocks. So the rigging crew is getting older, the ground's getting steeper, the blocks are still the same weight. So we've started to talk to different logging companies in BC and the Pacific Northwest. We've talked to one company that builds products for NASA out of carbon fiber, aluminum, plastic. We've also just started talking to Opsal Steel, who makes the OSCO block, which is the photo on the far left. So we're looking forward to having more conversations with them and figuring out how the haulback block can be reduced in weight or redesigned to help improve the safety record around moving those heavy blocks around. With FPInnovations, a lot of the products and tools and reports that we produce are for members only. I'm happy to say that at the website I've provided here. Our BMPs for winch assist equipment, they're available to everybody in the room for download, along with our wire rope integrity guide for operators. So that document, I believe we've produced 300 and we're being asked to produce more. It's been really well received by industry. And again, this information is available at our Steep Slopes Initiative website for our members, non-members, contractors, everybody. So I think that's a great thing in terms of improving safety. I just wanted to introduce 2 people here today. Nick Birch from IotaTel, if you could stand up. Nick's led a lot of the work around the Faller Cam project. He's at the FPInnovations IotaTel booth today. He does have the Faller Cam there if you're interested in seeing a demo. I also wanted to introduce from FPInnovations Mithun Sheedy. He's done work, led the projects around boomsticks and also the ESC projects. With that, thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.